Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this special online job fair. My name is Krish Kandaya, and I'm going to be your host for the afternoon. And we've got a long list of fantastic people who are going to share their wisdom and experience with you. I am the current director of UKHK, which was an organisation brought together as soon as the UK civil society groups heard about the large migration to the UK from Hong Kong. And we thought, wouldn't it be fantastic if we could do our best to roll out the red carpet and offer as many people from Hong Kong a warm welcome to the UK as we can. Just so that you know, and I should tell you this early, there is an opportunity to hear this seminar in Cantonese. And if you just go onto the interpretation button on your screen, and then you get to choose whether you're listening in to English or Cantonese. And we're very grateful that we have simultaneous translation available for you. So just in case, even in my introduction, you might want to switch over to Cantonese and hear what's going on there. But UKHK exists to do three things, and they all are about welcome and integration. The first is we want to offer a kind of social welcome and social integration. And so around the UK, we've been running friendship festivals. In fact, there's a couple happening this weekend. One is happening in Sutton and another in Belfast. And next week, there's one in Milton Keynes, and please visit the UKHK website to find out more about them. The one we did in Reading, I was able to attend, was fabulous. I didn't know that Hong Kongers would be good at tug of war and postcode Olympics. And I think we also had a ceilidh, which is kind of Scottish dancing with bagpipes. But Hong Kong people did a fabulous job of really just getting involved. It was a wonderful festival, and you don't have to dance if you don't want to, but the kids all seem to love it. We also have been working on something called a welcome course. And that's a course to try and help people who want to make new friends in the UK, want to practice their English, and want some help with the Life in the UK citizenship test. And so this course has been designed with Hong Kongers in mind, but it is also useful for other people from other nations too. And that is a course that you can do. It's a kind of 6-episode course. Most people are doing it over 6 weeks. And a lot of local churches and civil society groups are running those. And so again, have a look on the UKHK website to find out more about that. The second area of integration is educational integration, and we've produced 20,000 copies of this little book, Welcome to the UK, and it's beautiful. We had a wonderful member of our team who's excellent at design, and she's made some fabulous little animated kind of characters here, and then every page has got something wonderful to encourage children who've arrived in the UK, might be feeling a little bit lonely, or might be feeling like they're missing home. This is an inspirational book to help kids integrate well, and you can get that from your local welcome festival, or if you do the welcome course, or if you have a local church that is near you that's part of the UKHK network. So there you go, the welcome book. But we also have a special event happening tomorrow. If you have children in the UK with you, we know that it can be difficult for children to integrate well into school. And we're going to have a special focus tomorrow on something called third culture children. I am a third culture child. My mum and dad were from Malaysia and India, so that was kind of one culture at home. My mates at school were British, and I kind of didn't quite fit in either at school or at home because I was this hybrid. And that brings all sorts of amazing superpowers, but it also brings some challenges. So tomorrow, we're having a special event called Every Child Welcome. And if you, your spouse, or even the teacher from your local school would like to come along, it's a free event running 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. And the final thing we've been doing are these skills to work events. And today we've got our big job fair, but up until now, every 2 weeks, we've been running a special event. Maybe it's been looking at things like interview skills. What are the kind of cross-cultural dynamics of doing an interview in another culture? What about preparing your CV? How can you kind of make that work? What about a covering letter? I didn't realize how culturally bound those things are. You can look back at some of those events that we put on. They're available on our website as well. And everyone that's come has found it really, really helpful. We've had experts from around the UK, from a whole bunch of different industries, help us there. But today we continue on with that professional integration, helping people into work. And we've got some amazing stories to tell you about ordinary people that have made a transition from Hong Kong to the UK. We thought if we shared some of those with you, if you are currently looking for work or finding it a bit frustrating, this might help and inspire you. So I'm delighted to invite our first speaker to come. I think we're going to start with Ringo. And I met Ringo very soon after he arrived in the UK. And then we'll be hearing from an entrepreneur, Mr. Howard Sang. So Ringo, are you ready to come online and we can introduce you? Hey Ringo, nice to see you.
Hi Chris, hi everyone. Chris, really thank you for inviting me to this job fair. About this is really pleased to share my story. But first of all, I could just say I'm not going to give you some very practical advice on the job hunting, but I hope my story kind of give you some insight if you also want to explore your new career in UK. And I believe we have a kind of some common background with all of you in front of the screen. Similar to many of you, I was born, educated in Hong Kong. I kind of gained my profession, developed my career in Hong Kong. But as long as you know that Hong Kong is no longer the Hong Kong we love, so we basically quit everything in Hong Kong now, move to UK, or you probably will should move soon. I hope that is our common background. Today about the job. So I'm going to share some of my experience in finding job in UK and working here. And also I also want to share another story of my friend, which is really fascinating. I hope the story can inspire you to stay positive when you are finding your new career in Hong Kong, which I have to say, it won't be easy, but I would say you will go through the journey easier if you have a right attitude and a mindset. I moved to UK with my family, my wife and two sons, in January of last year. To be very honest with you, one of my worries is how to pay my bills for my family in the next 5 to 6 years. This is really practical worries, and particularly as a father of a family, there's a responsibility to take care of my family rests on me. So, but on the other hand, I think working in UK can also help to understand the country better and quicker. I think working locally does help me to settle in here much quicker. Just give me some kind of background of myself. I was trained as an architect in Hong Kong. Have been working in the building industry for over 20 years. Before moving to UK, I already realized that finding a job in UK probably is similar to what I was doing, won't be easy. My qualification is not recognized in UK. B, honestly, I don't have any local experience. This is a matter of fact that I cannot change. So when I prepare myself, I may not be able to find a job which I used to do, or I need to do a more kind of junior role. So I could suggest you to be kind of more practical and see how your qualification and skill set can be developed here. I think don't be overconfident about your experience, your qualification you learn in Hong Kong, but at the same time, don't be too pessimistic about the future. I would say the opportunity in UK, somehow I find that it's much wider, more diversified than I anticipate. I just try to be just try to be open to any opportunity which you may think you may never think of if you are working in Hong Kong. I did heard a lot of a story of Hong Kong people who kind of start with doing volunteer works, and then she kind of get familiar with the community, their neighborhood, and then the job market, and then she was able to get a job quite easily. So when I moved in UK in early 2021, honestly, the country was totally in lockdown, and you can imagine finding job at that period of time is harder than now, I believe. But no matter what, I still kind of start sending application, any job related to my profession, even before I left Hong Kong. I contact the recruitment agents to help. But honestly, at that period of time, the response was not very positive during the lockdown period. I think I sent out kind of 30, 40 applications, but thankfully I still got 2 interviews from a local council, which within a month during lockdown period is quite amazing experience. And also the process was not really dramatic, as I just gone through a couple of virtual interview, and they end up offering me an 1-year contract, which was to cover a maternity leave of a staff. So the project is about kind of master planning, which is quite close to what I was doing, not 100%. Although I don't have the local experience, I personally feel that they also consider my experience in Hong Kong and is relevant, and also the unique experience in Hong Kong maybe is also valid to their project. So I just think that probably just kind of share that I believe that working attitude is more than important to the skill, which can be trained and learned later. And so that's one of the the project I'm although it's a 50% similar, but also there's a lot of things I need to learn in my first year. Now I'm very lucky I can extend my contract because the local council is progressing the other project. They got extra funding. So this is now is my 2nd year here. Really grateful for this opportunity. So honestly, again, my advice is grab the opportunity when, even though it's a temporary or not exactly what you're used to work on. So just carry on. So personally, I don't see the huge difference in my daily duty and office culture compared with Hong Kong. I think particularly if you're quite used to write and speak English in Hong Kong, I don't see that's a huge problem. And I don't think you need to worry too much about speaking English in the workplace. And I think most of people in UK realize that English is not our first language. They really respect and accept this kind of, we need to extra time to process, to translate. I think this they fully understand. So I think also I want to share kind of my learning when I work in UK. I think it's really, I'm really blessing that the core value of the local council I work for is they really focus on the people, how the project can have a social value, a positive social value to the community. I think they really value the voice of different people and different group of stakeholders during the cycle of the project. So there are a lot of communities engagement, consultation to make sure every voice of different category of people in the community will be heard during the different stage of project. So my reflection or advice is, you try to understand the core value of the company or your job market. Sometimes I find that it's more diversified than UK, and which is I think is able to help you to prepare your CV, your cover letter interview, and also help you to explore more kind of a different opportunity that you never imagine in Hong Kong. So I'm really grateful to this opportunity. Honestly, I got great support and care from my colleagues and line manager who understand how difficult I need to get used to as a kind of new immigrant. My line manager always asks us to switch off the screen, go out for a walk, as she really care our mental health, particularly when most of us was work from home last year. So this is. It's just my story. I don't know. It's not very dramatic, but I'm also, again, I want to share another story which I think is more inspiring than myself. She was a social worker in Hong Kong, has been UK also more than a year. Initially, she did not really plan to work in her first year because there's so many things for her to learn, to get used to. The other reason is she does not think that she can practice as a social worker because, well, similar to me, the qualification is hardly recognized here. And also without understanding to the local community and culture, I think social work is a bit difficult to practice from her perspective. But she feel that she has to work, similar that she want to make the contribution to the community. Second, I think working, like what I said, working is able to help her to get her more engaged in the community and this country. So, well, it's really interesting. One day she was just in the library and meet a lady in the entrance who was recruiting a care home assistant. After the kind of conversation, she found out that the care home assistant is really a kind of amazing, meaningful job. Is able to serve the elderly, the people in need. The second, because it's only part-time, she does not need to sacrifice a lot of her time to the family. So she made the application, and thankfully she got employed very quickly. So, but she has been working in this care home as assistant for half a year now. Honestly, there have been some ups and downs to her in her kind of first 3 months, largely due to the working culture. I think just small example is she is the only person who does not smoke, which always make her feel herself a bit like alien. And also English is not her first language. So this is a lot of things you need to get used. She almost want to quit the job, but she still think that the job is really meaningful because she's able to serve the elderly. And also the elderly in her care home is mostly with dementia, which she know the basic from her kind of social work background, and find that she is able to apply some skill set to help the resident. So she just keep working hard, learning from her colleagues, and now she feel much better handling her daily duty and get great support and recognition from her team. It's amazing. I think her story is very encouraging because, you know, care home assistant is not an easy job. I think you can imagine if you need to work in care home in Hong Kong. Physically, it's quite demanding because you need to kind of serve the food, give the medication, help to take bath or shower with them, upkeep the environment as clean as possible. So she feels so grateful that she's learned this kind of new skill on top of her social work background. So one of her kind of learning during that period is kind of similar to me, is that the service in care home is people focused. The respect and dignity to the elderly in the care home here is nothing compared to the care home in Hong Kong, as far as you understand. The care home assistant will hug the elderly or hold their hands when they feel probably scared, because some dementia patient will be scared quite easily and emotional unstable. So they try to do their best to help them in the their last miles of their life. So that is a really eye-opening lesson to her. Particularly when she compare how poor the social service in elderly to the elderly in Hong Kong, especially the poor people in Hong Kong. So it's such a blessing for her to able to kind of serve the minority in the community, and at the same time she can learn the new skills, kind of improve her English, more engaged in the local community. I hope her story really inspire you to try to kind of look beyond our own boundary and comfort zone. And also, I think our experience also show the local community really welcome Hong Kong people very much, as long as we show our willingness to kind of work hard and our heart to serve people. So this, Chris, is just two stories I will share.
Thank you, Ringo. Oh, it's just wonderful to hear from you. And thank you for presenting such an encouraging story. I think many people that are currently discouraged or worried about getting jobs here will find great help and comfort from what you've shared. And well done for telling the other story as well about someone else. And I really liked your emphasis on dignity and service. I think that's really, really appreciated. Now, during our event today, we love it for you to ask questions, and you can do that through the Q&A section on the bottom of your screen where it says Q&A and then 2 speech bubbles. We did have one question so far. It's saying, will this be available as a recording afterwards? And the answer is yes. But if you're watching the recording afterwards, you can't ask questions. So there are lots of added values of being live in the room and sticking with us throughout the day, because you can ask questions. And so if you do have a question that comes to your mind about what Ringo shared, please feel free to type that in as you go. Ringo, it was a pleasure to meet you very early in your integration into the UK, and you helped me a number of times. I think you came with me on a virtual visit to the Home Secretary and the Prime Minister, and you were very inspirational there, and you left an impression with them. And so I know you will have left an impression today with the other guests that are with us. So wonderful to have you here. Thanks for sharing your story and giving us some really practical beginnings. We're going to hear now from Howard. So let's bring Howard on. Thank you so much, Ringo. See you again soon. We're going to hear from Howard. Can you hear us, Howard?
Hello, Chris. Yes, I can hear you. Thank you very much.
Good to see you. Last time I saw you again. Nice to see you. Last time I saw you, you were at the Reading Friendship Festival, and you were doing a good job. I think you sold out of your product in minutes. It was so popular. But do you want to tell us a little bit of your story coming to the UK, how you found things and what you're currently doing?
Sure. I arrived in UK in December 2020, before Christmas. Maybe I tell you more about my background first. In Hong Kong, it will make the audience easier to follow the story. In Hong Kong, I was a financial due diligence consultant and a data analytics consultant. I work on my own as a consultant to serve my clients. So it has been like that for 10 years. Before that, I was a journalist. I work in the media industry in Hong Kong, in Hong Kong Economics Journal and Ming Pao. So this is my background. So when I first arrived, actually it's the next day after I arrived, the lockdown start. So we have been locked down for 6 months, as far as I remember. Maybe the first 1 or 2 months, we were very busy settling down, apply for the council tax, get a school for the kids, everything. We spent the first 2 months hanging around, do the paperwork. Then maybe around April or something. Yeah, after 3 months, I start to search for a job, because my professional, I have two sides. First of all, I was in a financial due diligence business. I'm a CFA. On the other side, I'm a data analytics consultant. So I try to search for jobs in both industries to test the market, to get a feeling of it. Because I have never in that situation of finding a job in UK. This is really, really new to me, and is also is brand new experience for me to search in a lockdown situation, totally online, zero face-to-face things. Basically the tools I use is the LinkedIn. I find the premium service quite useful. It's not advertisement, but I find it useful in several ways. First, it got some job there. It connected me to the headhunters, and and I also, through the process of looking for jobs, at the very beginning, because I think one of the questions for professionals who find a job here is we don't know at which level we can actually enter the job markets. For me, I have 10 years of experience, so this is kind of in the middle levels, or a little bit above, or a little bit below. So the first question I have to ask is what kind of job I have to find, and secondly, at what level of job I should apply. It's just try by errors. After a few weeks, judging by the response of my applications, I gradually find it the managerial roles job it seems impossible in my case, because I I think because we lack of the social experience in UK, so it's really unconvincing for us to manage the people here at the moment. So I shift the target a little bit downwards to the more technical kind of jobs, below the mid-level a little bit. And seems the response has been quite good. I got several job interviews and dozen of direct reject. So fortunately enough, in 3 months' time, I got my first job here. Actually, it's my only job here. Now I'm working for multinational companies, in private sectors, as a data analyst. My company's client is actually is a government, so I do the data analytics things on behalf of them, serving them. My experience is my working experience. My experience working with my colleagues here is actually pretty nice. I think this is the best job I have ever had for my long working careers. All the colleagues is really nice, and best of all, the job I have is 100% work from home. So my teammates is spread all over UK. Some of my teammates in Leeds, some of them in Birmingham and Manchester. Some of them, maybe one of it is also here in London, like me. So it is a small team and spread all over the UK. Now it's almost 1 year since my job start, and the funny thing is because it's all start in the lockdown situations, and I only met my teammates once in the Christmas party. That's a situations, but I find it's really nice working experience. Working at home, we have meeting on Zoom or Team in Microsoft. All our job is really much data orientated, so it is more about the computer things, access to server, database. So the company is really supportive, and I first time in my life I find work-life balance here. Maybe it's because of the working culture here, because people here, or the colleagues, is very respect to the working hours. So they won't send you emails 3 o'clock in the mornings. After 5, things will stop. Yeah, for the overall teams. Yeah, but yeah, I have a bad habit. I usually, after my kids go to bed, I will work a little bit more. Yeah, because I want to yeah, to show that I can do my work. Yeah, I think there's something new. And in terms of the salaries, I find it quite encouraging. Even though I found a job that is at the level that in the hierarchy level is a bit lower than I used to be. But because of the nature of the job, it seems the supply demand here is totally different from Hong Kong. For the data oriented job, data analyst, data scientist kind of jobs, the general salary level here is much higher than Hong Kong. So even though I enter at a little bit lower levels, but still the salary is okay for me. Yeah. Yeah, I'm fortunate enough to work in an industry has this kind of situations. Yes. Maybe more about yeah. I could talk more about the LinkedIn experience. So I tried a financial due diligence kind of job, but the response is not good. So I focus more on the data analytics kind of jobs, and the response is okay. And I find the right level to apply for, judging by the response I got. So I find the right level of job in the right industry with my experience. Then I will focus at the job opportunities at that particular levels. And once you focus that, once you're able to find the right industry, right job at the right levels, I think the LinkedIn they have a very detailed job descriptions, so I can adjust my CV accordingly. I'm not making it up, but I put a more focus on the technical side rather than the managerial experience kind of things. Yeah, adjust it to meet their expectations, more emphasize my technical skill. So I find it quite useful, and it seems the response was really good. In terms of the interview experience, because it was in the lockdown situation and the nature of my job is all totally 100% online. So the first round was with the HR, answering some basic questions, background informations, pretty much a routine. I think you will have the same experience in Hong Kong. And second round, I met the managers, the direct boss of me. So it goes strictly into the technical questions, and he gave me a task. I finish it overnight and send the answer to him in the mornings. So and we have another round of Zoom meetings. We discuss about my work and their expectations, and what kind of job they are doing, who they are serving, and what kind of software they need to use. So I answer their questions. Some of the technical aspect I have it. I think most of it I have the experience. Part of it is new to me. I think the attitude is you always have to learn something new. I think that is the only golden rule in life. Yeah, it's always changing, and you always need to learn new stuff continuously, maybe until the last minute of my life. I have to do that like that. This is my job searching experience. I really like it because work-life balance. First time in my whole life, I feel I have a work-life balance, and the colleagues and the company is really supportive. Yeah.
Thank you, Howard, so much. Just
Yeah.
before we have Ringo back and take some questions from the audience, can you tell us a little bit about how your other business got started? Because I've sampled it and it's amazing. Tell us about it.
Yes. When I arrived in UK, I live in the famous building in Suttons with a lot of Hong Kongers living in the same buildings. I met a lot of new friends there, new neighbors, also from Hong Kong, arrived in around that period of times. We were the kind of the first batch of the Hong Kongers arrive in UK. I met some good friends there, and one of the neighbors is expertise in the Hong Kong milk tea. He called Eric. He was planning to launch his own bottled milk tea, which is now selling in the supermarket. Yeah, H Mart. Yeah, in the Hua Lam Hong, that kind of place. And it's called Trinity. Yeah, that is his business. So when he trying to tune the taste, he share his milk tea with us, with all the neighbors. I taste it, and my tears just came down from my eyes. Yeah, it was the taste of Hong Kong, and I really touched. And I think maybe besides his bottled milk tea business, I can set up a tea leaves business with him in here to serve the Hong Kong communities, because I found the tea leaves and the milk tea is not more than just a drink. Yeah, it is a kind of time machine that bring you back to the old Hong Kong. So I discussed with Eric, and and we start a joint venture, a small companies to selling the Hong Kong style, the tea leaves that is specialized for the Hong Kong style milk tea and lemon tea. So that's happened before I actually find my job. So I start the company first, and then after a few months I find my job. And I can do it on my weekend time, after the office hour time. Yeah, I find it as an entrepreneur here, as a startup founder here, I find the experience really encouraging, because it's easy to set up a companies. I think the most headache come from the account and the tax stuff, and that kind of things. You need expertise. I find accountants, and he take care of the bookkeeping and the tax things for me. So besides that, we can focus in the business. That's why you may find me in the you will see me in the Sutton Festival in this weekend. I was selling the tea leaves there. I think, yeah, for people come from a professional background, I think finding a job is not really that hard, as long as you accept you may have a little bit of setback in terms of the grade you have in the companies. If you are not in a professional business, maybe your English is not that good. I think set up a business serving the Hong Kong community itself is a way to make a living here. I see a lot of startup like that. It's not just milk tea. It's not just the tea leaves. I have friends here that he set up a business purchasing the fresh seafood in the Billingsgate market on behalf of the Hong Kong communities. He got a lot of business, very good business. So he get the order from the social media and go to the Billingsgate market 3 o'clock in the mornings and deliver it to the customer. Really, really good. Yeah, I think this kind of thing is also, this kind of opportunity is all around us. Yeah.
Good.
Think openly, yeah, and try to serve try to meet the demands.
Thank you, Howard. That was really inspirational. I'm really thirsty now for a cup of your Hong Kong milk tea. I
See
love
you
the
on Saturday in
metaphors.
Sutton.
Yes, I love the metaphors. A time machine that takes you back to the old Hong Kong. That's beautiful. I think you'll have a lot of orders from our listeners today, because I think we're all thirsty for the old Hong Kong as well. So thank you. And I think many people will be encouraged in two directions. One around getting a job in tech. There are a few questions about that I'll ask you about in a minute. And the second is about being an entrepreneur. I really thought that was a good idea, that if you're struggling to find a job, why not have a side hustle, as they might say in America, which is good for your skills, and it helps you to learn. Who knows if the business will take off and become its own thing. But nevertheless, you're still learning about how business works here in the UK, which will be very useful for you if you do get a job as well. So thank you so much for sharing that. Let's invite Ringo back, and then we have a few questions already from people. And if you have more questions, we're totally open to that as well. Oh, suddenly the questions have all disappeared. Where's that gone? Oh, here it is. Ringo, good, welcome back.
Hi.
So Chi Sante asked, where can I go to get assistance in finding jobs? What are some of the places that Hong Kongers can go to think about where to find jobs? Maybe Ringo or Howard, you might want to start. You mentioned LinkedIn earlier. You want to say more about LinkedIn, or are there other places people should be looking they might not have thought of?
Ringo, you go first.
Yeah, I go. Honestly, because I'm in Hong Kong. I didn't really kind of the last job I've been working is almost 10 years. I kind of already can't remember when I need to rewrite my CV, prepare interview. That kind of. So I think it's kind of also kind of a kind of new lesson for me to kind of. So now it's kind of a new digital environment. So I'm learning. Honestly, I can't. So as I said, probably update your LinkedIn profile, keep active. I think that's definitely is really worthwhile. Kind of invest your time to kind of, and also I think talk to the people. I did talk to even in Hong Kong. I emailed to a couple of agents in UK. Some of them respond, have a kind of a long distance call with me, but as I said, I was finding a job during lockdown. They saying that I didn't have too much opportunity anyway. So I think, but there's a lot of a kind of opportunity there. So I think, yeah, maybe Howard, you can supplement your story.
Okay. Yeah, I have a similar experience as you, because for the last decades, I was a sole trader consultant for the financial due diligence and the data business. So searching for a job is something something new to me, and yeah, it's totally changed compared 10 years ago. 10 years ago, the way of finding job is totally different. So I at this moment, yeah, after you come to UK, I use the LinkedIn. I find it's really useful in several ways, because it has a lot of job there. And secondly, the LinkedIn, you can put a lot of your information into it. So the headhunter, if you choose who can access your CV, your profiles, if you pick it openly, so any headhunter can read it, they really search it, yeah. So you can put a lot of information into it to introduce your techniques and your experience. I find it's really useful here. I think it's even more useful than Hong Kong, I have a feelings. And this is first. And secondly, it really link you up with a lot of headhunters. I think they will use some kind of software to search your LinkedIn profiles. Remember to put the right keywords in it. They may not really read it. They may use a kind of software to search on the LinkedIn for searching for candidates with several keywords. So you have to know the keywords. And how you know the keywords this is by try and error, I think. So you keep improving your profile on LinkedIn. If there's some response, you know the kind of job you are looking for. Look deep into the job descriptions and see what kind of keywords, what kind of techniques, what kind of software they're asking for. And if you have this techniques, yeah, put it in the profile as a keywords. If you don't have the technique, find a course online to learn it. You can learn it in, I think nowadays, any skill, even AI, you can maybe 3 months time, 6 months time, you will know a lot about it. If it is just a technical software, you can gain some experience and some credential by register for the online course. If you register for the online course, put it in your profile. You tell them that I'm learning that. It will help. It will definitely help. So this is the experience I have, and I find it very useful. And there's some question from the Q&A. It's asked about the
there's two questions about
software, right?
Yeah, two questions about data analytics for you, Howard. So one is around what are the kind of tools and skills that you specifically need in the UK, and one asking more generally, what is the situation like in the data industry in the UK? Is it easy to find a job?
Maybe I ask the second question first. Generally speaking, the data business here is booming. It's a lot of new opportunity opened, and the salary level is better than in Hong Kong. I think in Hong Kong they have a tradition of not respecting the IT peoples. There's a slang in Hong Kong. It's called IT dog, right? So here is totally different. The company respect candidates with the right skill, Yeah, and the supply demand situation here in the data areas is really tight. I think at the moment it is on the candidate side if you have the right experience. So if you have this kind of experience, and yeah, I encourage to just look into LinkedIn and see what kind of level of job you are qualified for, and dig into it. I'm quite sure. I can't guarantee, but yeah, the general market situation, you are very likely to find a job in 3 months' time. The second question is what kind of software we are using. It really depends on which areas of the data industry you are working for. If you're a data scientist, the basic combination will be the Python, SQL, maybe a little bit more on the data engineering side is a knowledge on the database on cloud. If you are more towards the marketing side, the presentation side, is the software we use a lot is the Power BI, Tableau, SQL. Yeah, this is the basic three. Yeah, so it really depends on what particular area you are focusing in and what level of positions that you find the response is good and you're focusing in. So it's different in yeah, because data area is really large. Yeah, data engineer, data scientist, and data analytics is 3 different areas. They ask for different skills.
We're going to have a little bit more time to think about the data industry. Our next speaker is from Salesforce, so we can ask a bit more there. Yeah. Thank you to Mina, who translated a Cantonese question for me. Can you give me the online course addresses? You mentioned online courses. Is there a particular website that you might go to? Maybe we can share that in the chat if possible. Great, Ringo, a question that came up was around how do UK businesses treat people from Hong Kong? You've had some very positive experiences, it seems, as has Howard. And someone else was asking, what about discrimination? Are you aware of Hong Kongers receiving discrimination as they go through the process?
Or maybe I go first. I think how the employee in UK, the city I'm living actually is quite. I think generally UK is very international. People is just very diversified. My neighbor is from India, Brazil, from East Europe. I don't think there's a huge issue on the kind of discrimination or on the. I didn't really encounter that problem, but I do confess there's some maybe some cultural difference. For example, I think very practical when during the communication, your English may not be very good. That end up probably people will seldom talk with you because you didn't really communicate too well. I think this is the kind of to start, but I think I'm still encouraging because you realize that this is kind of it's more about the communication problem. So as long as the more you talk, basically your communication, your English should be improved. I think that can solve. So I don't see this as about kind of discrimination. And also I think, as I said, that attitude is much more important than the skill. So when you show your kind of your passion, your willingness to work kind of competently, or instead of you have a kind of a lot of certificate, you have a lot of skill set. I think, but people did value what kind of people you are instead of your background. So that's my experience.
Thank you, Ringo. I think nationally we do have a problem with what we call racial disparity. That came out in some of the lockdown statistics about people from different backgrounds being more likely to die from COVID or to be not believed when they went forward in the hospital. there are disparities around pay grades. So we, like the rest of the world, still struggle with things like racism. But I think overall, there has been tremendous progress in the UK. And the interesting thing, you probably will be aware, today is a big day in immigration. I don't know if I haven't been watching the news this afternoon, but there was a planned flight going from the UK to Rwanda, taking people who had come here from places like Afghanistan or Albania or Syria, and deporting them, well, not even deporting them back to their own countries, sending them to a new country, Rwanda, where they would claim for asylum in Rwanda. Now, the way that the nation of Britain has responded to Hong Kongers is very different. We have a really good visa route. We're very supportive. The government is putting money to try and help events like this to take place. So let me say this, that I'm not saying that people from Hong Kong won't experience discrimination, but in general, the government and the nation is very positive towards people from Hong Kong. There was a little bit of a spike in race-based hate crime during the pandemic, during the lockdown, and some of that was due to a certain American president blaming the virus on China or calling it Hong Kong flu. So that meant all sorts of people did stupid things, and you know, I'm sorry if that's been your experience. Part of the vision from UKHK was to offer that welcome and support wherever people are from. But let's time, I think, for just a couple more questions here. What is the opportunity and problems to start a business in, what is the opportunity and problem to start in the UK? Why are people being discriminated there? I think we've dealt with the discrimination piece. Maybe Howard, say a little bit more about some of the problems and opportunities in starting a business. That might be helpful to people.
Starting a business here, I think it's not really difficult. Just look around, you say, for example, as I just said, even if you cannot speak very good English, maybe at the very beginning, you just focus in the Hong Kong communities. I'm living in London, so I may be a little bit fortunate because it is more focused. You know, Hong Kong people is more on the west side, from north to south. I've set up the company procedurized. It's very easy. You can do it in 15 minutes online, so it shouldn't be a problem. It's really fast, yeah, much easier than in Hong Kong. But tax thing, accounting things, you have to pay for that. Yeah, maybe around. My experience is around £50 per month. A lot of online company can handle that, do the bookkeeping and the annual tax tax stuff for you. Yeah, around £50 per month. Yeah, that kind of level as a small start business. So that shouldn't be a problem. I think just be. That's helpful. Maybe the online is an opportunity. I understand that a lot of people have skill and they don't want to they want to set up a shop, you know, have a physical shop on the high street, something like that. That would be much more expensive. Maybe talking about £100,000 kind of investment. It would be quite a lot, and it's just kind of scary to invest that kind of money into a venture. Yes. It's a pace you don't really understand. So maybe think about the online things, or at least, for example, the kind of kitchens that do the focus in the delivery, yeah, because a lot of Hong Kong people would like to have those kind of foods we have in Hong Kong. You may not need to open a shop. Yeah, be flexible. Maybe you just find a place, have a kitchens, and do the delivery business kind of things. Focus in the Hong Kong community first, and make a living, and after that you may try to make it more attractive to the local and how to border the business. Yeah, but I think the first thing is do the things that you're really familiar with.
That's really helpful advice, Howard. And no one's quite sure how many people from Hong Kong are here in the UK. I hear around 100,000 is quoted, and that is a sizable market, if you like, and it makes a lot of sense to work with what you know. I think your milk tea has served Hong Kong as well, giving them that taste of home, but I think more people will be interested in it as well. Like the crossover we've seen with bubble tea from Korea has become national. So maybe we'll have more Hong Kong flavors here, thanks to people like you. Great, we're coming to an end of this section. Coming up in just a few moments, we're going to be hearing from someone from Salesforce, and then later on, we're going to hear from the engineering sector and the education sector. But I hope you would like, with me, to say thank you to Ringo and Howard, and please use the chat function or the question section just to cheer them on. I found that really, really inspiring and encouraging. And particularly, Howard, hearing that your work-life balance is better here. That's good to hear. And that there have been a lot of concern in the nation around mental health. And we know that moving countries can be very stressful, setting up a business, speaking a new language. But our hope is, again, the welcome that you receive and the support that you get here will allow you to flourish. It sounds like that's happening for both of you. So really grateful for your time. And thank you. I'm now delighted to be able to invite Sarah Earnshaw from Salesforce. Salesforce is one of the fastest growing digital companies in the world. I have been grateful to use it in some of my charitable work. I work with small charities, and they've really loved Salesforce's approach. I think they even allow charities to rent their amazing upper deck, which is a fabulous venue. So we're grateful for your philanthropic work as an organisation, Sarah. But tell us a little bit about yourself first, and I know you've got a presentation for us. And as the questions come up, I'll be watching, and hopefully in a polite way, I'll interrupt you every now and again and just tell you, oh look, there's a really good question that has come up. So keep those questions coming. But we're delighted to have you here, Sarah. Thank you for your time.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Krish. I look forward to your interruptions. I'll go ahead and see if I can get started sharing while we're starting the talk, just so that I know it's actually working. So bear with me just a second. First of all, the reason I'm here today is because I spent some time living in Hong Kong. I lived in Hong Kong for 5 years and really loved it. I moved out in 2010. I came back in 2000. Am I on screen? Hang on a sec. I came back in 2015.
You can't see your slides yet, Sarah.
Bear with, just trying to find the right technology. I work in tech, but that doesn't mean it always works for me.
I find that comforting, actually.
Yeah, you know, some of my customers have said that before as well. All right.
Yeah, here it is. Yeah, we can see that. That's great.
Excellent. So I'm just going to minimize that. So yeah, that's the why I'm here today. It's really a personal interest. And I'm really delighted to welcome all of you who are either moved to the UK, in the process of moving to the UK, or hoping to move to the UK, wherever you are in that process. Really, really happy to hear you coming here. Also very happy if that means some good Hong Kong food, which is sorely lacking in the UK. I would very much welcome that and would be one of the top customers, I imagine. So I was asked today to come in and talk a little bit about the tech industry, and also just share a little bit about my observations of general cultural differences. So I'm going to try and do that in a fairly pacey way, and Krish will interrupt me and ask questions as we go. So first, just see if this works. There we go. First things first. The reason I wanted to share a little bit about my journey is because, as you'll find, I moved to the UK from another country twice. I've probably had many similar experiences to many of you. And in preparing for this call and speaking with Ringo, I was really struck by how many similarities there were in the experiences we had. So I thought it would be useful to share that a little bit. We may have more in common than you think. So my path actually started in the UK. I was born in the UK to an American mother and a British father, and we actually moved to the US in 1988. So hence why I sound like I do. I grew up half in North Wales and half in the US, but the latter part in the US. I did my education, including university in the US, and I had some work experience at that time as well. I worked in PR. So I moved to the UK in 2003, and I was very disappointed actually to find that although I had some work experience, because it wasn't in the UK, it was completely discounted. So I felt that, you know, even though I put in so much effort to get a good degree, to get some work experience so that I would be able to enter the workforce and have something to offer, unfortunately, I found that because it wasn't local experience, nobody was very interested in that. And so I was competing with other graduates. And not only was I competing with other graduates, I was competing with other graduates whose universities were much better recognized than this small Midwest liberal arts college that I went to in the US. So that was really challenging. I spent my first better part of 2 years working really wherever anyone would take me as a secretary. I did a couple of stints with the NHS, one with the Medical Defense Union, and just tried to bring a good attitude. And actually, this served me very well. There was one company, an American company, that I ended up doing some work for as an administrator, effectively a secretary, but they needed more done because it was almost like a startup environment, although we didn't really talk about it at that time as a startup. It was really very much a startup environment. And so the company needed some marketing materials produced. And what was really positive about this for me is that although my work was not well compensated for what I was doing and the value I was delivering, it did allow me to develop some in-market experience and to really be able to demonstrate in my portfolio, actually, look, this is work I've done here in this country. And so that was really valuable. And I was able to translate that into my first couple of then agency jobs, working on digital marketing primarily. It was this new area that wasn't very popular at the time. It was deeply unsexy. And if you knew how to code, you were much better off. And I could do a little bit. So I was able to bring that skill set as well, which really helped me get that foot in the door. I also did my first Salesforce project towards the end of this time in 2009 and early 2010. And that was a really good foundation for later on, obviously, now being where I am. But that was my first experience at that time. In 2010, I had the opportunity to move to Hong Kong. And I spent that time working first at an agency that is now called Fitch. And I was the regional digital marketing lead within their agency for Procter & Gamble. I also had a similar role for Colgate-Palmolive at Red Fuse, which is part of WPP Group. And during that time, I was also able to do my MBA at HKUST. So this was a really wonderful experience for me, really enabled me to develop my career, to develop my academic backgrounds, and to upskill myself in a way that would help me work better with customers as a consultant. I sought a new challenge after my MBA, and a friend of mine who owned a wine startup talked to me about coming to work for him. So I was able to use some of those skills that I developed in this very new entrepreneurial environment. Unfortunately, I did have some family challenges in 2014, and in early 2015, I made the decision to move back to the UK. What was really fortunate for me at that time was that because although I had been in Hong Kong, I had stayed in touch with ex-colleagues, I had stayed in touch with many friends in the UK, I had my network to tap back into. Chinese New Year of 2015, I came on a quick trip back, and I spent some time talking to people, going and meeting with recruiters who I'd worked with previously, meeting with ex-colleagues for coffee. So I took the long weekend and really spent some time to reconnect. I think I was doing 4 or 5 meetings of some kind or another a day. So by the time I came back, I had maybe not literally business cards, because we don't do that as much in the UK, but I had refreshed connections, and I had some interview opportunities. And that meant that by the time I moved back in May, I was able to very quickly start working again. So my first 6 months back, I spent contracting for another agency. And again, this was one of those things where, although I was moving back to the UK and I wanted to reestablish myself, and I knew that because of the financial situation I was in, I needed income fairly quickly, by taking a freelance role, it meant I was able to take my time on the decision about where I wanted to go next with my career as a whole. And at that time as well, one of my colleagues, former colleagues, saw on LinkedIn that I had returned to the UK. I was posting about a project I was working on. He saw this and said, and I think I'd also said, you know, my contract will soon be coming to an end. And at that time, he reached out and said, let's have a cup of coffee. I think you might like this. So a few things to pull out, just, you know, don't be afraid to take a step back. Don't be afraid to take a temporary role if it's something that will help you, whatever that immediate goal that you have is. And sometimes it is simply just make sure that you're paying the rent, taking care of expenses, but also, you know, make sure you're thinking intentionally about what the longer term is as well, if that's something that you know where you want to go.
Sarah, that's really, really helpful. And thank you for being vulnerable and talking about, you know, difficult moments in your career journey. That's such a gift to this audience. Can I ask a couple of questions? So one is around when you stepped out of the kind of digital workplace in 2014 to 2015, how difficult was it to come back in? Because I think a lot of people have had to step out, maybe because they've moved countries or they've taken time out to raise children. Can you talk about that transition?
Absolutely. It was really fascinating. It really helped me understand where my skills were and where they weren't. In any small business, you need to be constantly selling. And that was, I think, the most difficult part for me. But it did help me understand that that was something I had as a career gap and as a developmental gap that I would need to address at some stage. And I've definitely spent time at Salesforce working on that. It's very helpful when you're in an organization that is mostly salespeople. You get a lot of opportunities to observe and to work with people like that. As for stepping back in, because it was only a year, that wasn't the biggest challenge. My skills were still fresh. The bigger challenge was the network and reestablishing connections. Again, it is easier if you already have some connections, but even if you don't, just simply going and meeting people. I know it's a little harder now, and you know, not everybody even now is willing to have face-to-face meetings, but in some ways that makes it easier because culturally it's much more acceptable now to have a conversation like you and I are, Krish, and to just have a conversation on screen, which means that if you are still in Hong Kong, or, you know, if you have come to the UK and you're in Glasgow, you can be speaking to somebody in London. I'm speaking to you today from Stroud, which is about 45 minutes north of Bristol. So, you know, there are different ways of engaging, but it's what doesn't change is LinkedIn is absolutely the best tool out there for finding new connections, for meeting people. One thing I did when I came back as well is every conversation I had, I asked the question, unless it was a recruiter, in which case there were already going to be introductions to follow. But every person I met who wasn't a recruiter, the question I ended the conversation with was, do you have another person who I could speak to about this topic? Or is there anyone you would recommend I talk to about this fintech space that's starting to emerge in the UK?
That's great. So you can rebuild a network that way. I've seen in communities of new arrivals to a country that they provide that network as well. So, you know, it could be something that we could commit to, actually, that people listening here, you were in the same situation as all the Hong Kongers that have arrived, and you could help other Hong Kongers to get into the industries that you're in by just being attentive on LinkedIn and Facebook. And that's where we can kind of help increase the diversity in the UK marketplace.
And there is a real push for that, if I may, Krish, in that I think people are open to and interested in bringing in multiple voices and multiple experiences. Certainly within Salesforce, we talk about this and having a really diverse groups. So that's absolutely something to not be shy about. My recommendation is if you do reach out to somebody on LinkedIn, just include a short note as well, so that there's that context of, hi, Sarah, I saw you speak on this call, or hi, Krish, I really liked what you had to say about such and such. And bringing in that context means that there's that warmth of, oh yeah, of course, this is where I know this person from, or we haven't met, but we have this connection. That's
so helpful. We were planning a LinkedIn webinar, but sadly the lady that was presenting had COVID, but watch this space if we're able to resuscitate that. Just one last question from this slide was around your MBA. If people are struggling to kind of get into the workforce, does using that time for study, that seems to be something that really helped you in your development. Would you recommend that?
Yeah, I would. I think there's different levels of doing this. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But there's definitely different levels at which you can do this. If pursuing a degree is something that you've wanted to do for some time, then if you're going to be moving countries, this is a great opportunity to do that. That is, and actually right now is probably quite good timing, because I think there's probably still a couple of programs where you could apply. Certainly, when I moved to Hong Kong, I met other people doing their MBA full-time who wanted to move to Hong Kong, and so used the MBA as a way to make sure that they had the ability. I think if you do it in Hong Kong, you have 1 year, up to 1 year, to find a job and to start working, but your visa is valid for that year post your program. So for a lot of people, if they want to move to a country, doing that degree, it helps you with your network. It gives you time while you look. It is an investment. It's not cheap. So I think it's something that if you're not already thinking about it, I would think about other options. Again, I'll talk a little bit about that.
I think there's good rates at the moment for Hong Kong arrivals. I think they're given home student rates, which is incredibly advantageous at the moment. Anyway, I've interrupted you so much. I should let you get on, Sarah. This is really helpful, and thank you so much for it.
It's my pleasure. So the next piece I have is just a little bit about the differences between working culture, and it was interesting hearing the work-life balance comment earlier. We'll talk about that in a minute. So the first thing that I really noticed moving to Hong Kong in the first place was just how formal the setting can be compared to the UK. And take this with a grain of salt. I worked in advertising and digital marketing. That is a less traditional industry. If you're talking about finance, law, or even medicine, you'll often find that it's a little bit more formal and hierarchical. But in most of businesses in the UK, it's pretty relaxed. I'm wearing a jacket today because I felt that it was a good sign of respect to show up dressed nicely, and I'm conscious of my audience. But actually in Hong Kong, I never used to wear dresses, and it got to the point where I wore a dress to work every day, usually with a jacket, always in heels. And this was a really different vibe to what I had in the UK. So even coming back to the UK, it's not a bad thing, but I definitely found that for most occasions I was overdressed for quite some time while I readjusted. So that's the first difference. Again, if you show up and everyone's really casual, it's not a sign of disrespect. It's just the culture that you're going into. And again, I don't think you can overdress. I think it's okay. But just to be aware of this. Another difference I saw really clearly in my working life was in Hong Kong, my colleagues really focused on getting specific tasks done. There was a lot of focus around what the deliverables were, achieving particular milestones. And I think that's really valuable. But in the UK, that's kind of a baseline expectation almost of, yes, you need to focus on getting the deliverables in the right shape and completed and at a good level of quality. But it's an expectation beyond that. There's an expectation that you own the outcome, that you're really taking responsibility for what those deliverables are there to achieve. So one example of this might be if you're a project manager, your deliverable might be delivering a project plan, but it's really on you to speak out if you see that there are risks, if you see that the plan is slipping. And I see this across many, many areas of work. And so my encouragement would be, you know, get comfortable with being more vocal, with being more assertive, because those are the behaviors that tend to be rewarded in UK workplaces. So the next one we'll talk about is the hardworking work-life balance piece. Hong Kong is very hardworking, and I think people really admire and respect this. You may be shocked in a UK workplace to see colleagues leave at 5 p.m. on the button. And there is definitely an attitude to work here, not in all companies, but in many companies, there's an attitude that you should work to live, not live to work. And this is an expression that you'll hear many times, particularly if you end up working in local government or in any of the public sector. This is definitely an attitude that's informed by that space. So it's a good thing. I think it's definitely, it was a good wake-up call to me to spend some time to focus on my personal life. And you know, I met my partner after returning to the UK. So I think there's definitely some positive to that. But know that that's also informed by this next point, which is that in Hong Kong, there is very much an assumption that people have help of some kind at home. And maybe that's your mom or your mom-in-law, maybe it's a domestic helper, but that is something that most people in the UK don't have. And simply put, because relatively speaking, domestic help is quite expensive. Where even, you know, somebody working in an office in Hong Kong probably has a helper, maybe even 2 days a week, but has somebody to help with the laundry, or, you know, if you have children in school, there's a helper to pick up the children. Actually, this isn't the case in the UK. And so there is this understanding, and this is why it kind of goes with the third point, is there's this understanding that somebody will need to be in late to the office because they need to take the children to school. Somebody may need to leave early to go pick up the children. And there's been a lot of dialogue, certainly in the last 7 years since I moved back, about making sure that there's space for that and making sure that that is accepted, accounted for. And the other big change I've seen in the last few years is more encouragement that fathers should be able to do these things as well. It doesn't mean the work doesn't get done. Often what it means is, for me, if I have a colleague who needs to take care of something to do with their family one afternoon, say they log off now at 3:20, they might log back on at 7 p.m. and finish something off. So people are still very committed to getting work done, but there's an acknowledgement that sometimes it needs to fit around other things that are less flexible, like your child's school ending and needing to take them home from there. So this is the vast majority of what I wanted to talk about, but there's one last really important point that I think is both amusing and can trip people up. So I and many other Westerners I knew in Hong Kong had to be briefed on something really important about working culture, which is that in Hong Kong, the boss leaves first. And it's not until the boss leaves that then the next person can leave, and then that person's reports, and then that person's reports. And so everybody has to be really rigorous to leave on time. This was really hard to get my head around. In the UK, and certainly at the point I got to in my career where I managed teams, as a manager in the UK and somebody who wants to be a good manager, it's on me to make sure that my people are okay. And so if it's 7 p.m. and somebody's in the office, I'm going to go check. As the boss, I want to go check. Are you okay? What support do you need? And so this is a real clash where, especially if you have a UK manager working in Hong Kong, they're going to stay until like 8 o'clock. So this is all to say, if you're on the ground floor working your way up, you don't need to wait for the boss to leave. And if you do wait for the boss to leave, you might have a conversation where they're like, wait, what are you doing? Is your workload too high? And if you're the boss, it's good to know that there's not an expectation that you should leave like really fast, really early. There's the expectation that if people are around, that you might want to keep an eye on things. You might want to make sure people are okay. So as I say, this is one that's tripped up quite a few people I know. But hopefully these few points help give you a view of some of the main differences between working culture.
Sarah, that's so helpful. Not only are you bringing expertise from a sector like the digital world, but you're also giving us that cross-cultural experience of someone who's worked the other way around. And I think that's going to be so useful for all those that are listening. Thanks for sharing it.
It's my
Really
pleasure.
helpful. Very good. Someone was asking about online degrees, because we mentioned the MBA. Because you made a comment earlier about some universities having more kind of cachet or traction than others.
Sure.
Do you have any advice for someone looking at an online degree?
Yeah, so the online degree space, there's a lot more going on. I would definitely look at the rankings to see where that university ranks in terms of how well respected it is. So the UCAS rankings are for all universities, and you'll see which ones have online options and which don't. Most do these days because of the pandemic. The reason I flipped slide is also I just wanted to highlight the Open University. So the Open University actually runs free courses, and you can have a look at their course catalog. They actually have a free course that's all about getting into the digital world. Really good foundational course that a friend of mine has taken. They also do full degrees. So you can take Open University courses with the intention that those layer into a degree, but you can start it just by taking a few courses in which you have interest. They are not just a full-on university, they're a very well-respected institution in the UK. So definitely recommend looking at what they have to offer. And they cover not just digital, they cover a whole range of different disciplines. A friend of mine did a degree in creative writing while working as a pharmacist.
Oh, wow. That's a good combination. Someone asked about your slides. Because the whole recording will be available, you'll be able to see Sarah's slides there and you know, be able to follow along, which is great. And your comment about the UCAS rating system is really powerful. So it's less concerning where you studied, like whether it's online or in face-to-face, but from which institution you studied actually has more power. So that's a really good comment. Fantastic, Sarah. And I had another question for you about this work-life balance and leaving before the boss. That's fantastic. I wasn't aware of that in Hong Kong. What is it about UK working environments that might have made someone, do you think, like Howard have a better work-life balance here? What are some of the differences you're noticing?
You know, I think it is the fact that there is, you know, I talked a little bit about public sector. We also have a history of strong unions in this country. Although the UK is no longer as fully industrialized as it was, that's probably an understatement. You know, that history of strong unions does mean that people are aware that they have rights. They're aware that that workers have this ability to bargain collectively. If you look at recent conflicts between the Taxi Drivers Association and Uber trying to enter the UK, you know, whichever side of it you're on, there has been some conflict, and there's been some great points raised on both sides about how unions protect workers, but also how they can hamper innovation. So there's some really interesting discourse around that. I'd say across Europe, particularly if you look at France, Germany, there's a really similar mentality, and there's definitely there are much stronger worker protections in Europe in general than there are in Hong Kong. So I think it partially comes from that. And then I think also this culture where, again, we don't have that support and help at home, and therefore there is that need for flexibility, which hasn't always been present. You know, when I started working, it was not the case that a mum could feel comfortable going to pick up her child at 4 p.m., never mind the father. That's definitely shifted in the culture in a really positive way in the last 20 years.
Yes, just on that, Chloe Chow
Yeah.
has asked a question, because Howard mentioned that data jobs actually pay better here in some areas than in Hong Kong. But Chloe said, is it common in the UK that women should expect to earn less than men? That's a huge question. I know we've only got a couple of minutes, but give us your
It's
headline.
a big question. So no is the bottom line. That is something that is now required to be reported on. I'll do 2 points on this, and then we can move forward because I'm conscious of time. But the first point on this is that in most studies that have come out over the last 10 years, while a lot of employers do see wage gaps, that tends to be related to the fact that there tend to be more men in management and in leadership positions. And this is something a lot of organizations are really consciously working to shift. So that's one thing. The same job? No, it should not be the case. You do need to negotiate, and you need to be comfortable negotiating. I would encourage you to use tools like Glassdoor to make sure that you're finding out transparently what the pay scales look like in the industry that you're going into. The second point I wanted to make is that it's no longer acceptable for most companies to be talking about or to not be addressing the gender gap issue. So Salesforce in particular, over the last 5 years, has spent 16 million to address wage parity, not only on a gender level, but also on a race level. They're only able to look at that by the employee cohort by race in the US, simply because in many countries, the data isn't just not available. You're by law not allowed to collect data about somebody's racial background. But Salesforce has very specifically chosen to spend money to correct that. And I will tell you right now, I'm not proud of it because it means I'm negotiated badly. But I was one of the people in Salesforce who received a salary adjustment in my first year in the company. What that told me is, well, I thought I'd negotiated really well. I had not. To which I've taken that to heart and have worked to improve my negotiation skills. But Chloe, it's a great question. It's one that you can certainly ask about in interviews. But also, I'd encourage you to research the companies that you're looking at. I believe if a company has 100 employees now, Krish, keep me honest, they're required by law to report on their gender pay gap. And this is part of their filings with the government.
Yeah, I think that's right. And you know, someone asked another question earlier about whether people will be discriminated against because of their ethnicity. And again, theoretically, legally, no, but it is something that companies are recognizing they need to put right, and they're looking at the diversity of their senior management team, not just in terms of gender, but in terms of ethnicity and abilities and sexuality. So this is a whole area that we as a nation are really trying to get better at. I think, as Sarah's been saying, we are making really good progress, but that doesn't mean that we haven't got further that we can go. Sarah, amazing, really helpful. I've learned a lot from what you shared, and I'm really inspired by your story. So thank you for being so generous with your time and all the details that you've shared with us. We are going to transition in a minute, but I have to tell you, I'll put my camera on, here we go. Good news, Sam from UKHK has told me that the seminar for the LinkedIn event is taking place on the 28th of June. So good news, the person we were talking with has recovered from COVID, and she's very happy to give you some LinkedIn training. So there you go. But thank you, Sarah. We might have you back again if you are still around, and I know you're a busy person, so if you do have to go, that's fine. But we might have a bit of Q&A further on in our time. So let's hear now from Carl. Carl is from Austin, which is an engineering company. And Carl's married to Sue, and Sue is one of the leaders of something called Welcome Churches, which is helping us to kind of put on this event. So we're keeping it in the family, which is great. And Carl brings oodles of experience from the world of engineering. And again, if that's not a sphere that you know about, it could be, because there do seem to be some really exciting openings. Carl also brings some really helpful cross-cultural experience, a little bit like Sarah did. So Carl, thank you so much for joining us. Good to see you. You have a great tan. Have you been out somewhere nice?
Well, yeah, I did go kayaking at the weekend. So it was on a canal, and I think the sun was shining a little bit too much on me.
Yeah. Well, I saw you in Reading, and you seem to have look even more healthy than you did on that day. So I'll hand over to you. And if I see lots of questions coming in, I'll gently get in there so that you can respond to them. But over to you, Carl. Thank you.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be part of this seminar this afternoon. I'm just going to share my screen. We've got to try to find the presentation. Apologies for the slight delay. Can you see my screen, by the way?
Yes, we can see it. It looks great. Very impressive.
Lovely. What I really wanted to
play on the presentation, we can see your presenter notes.
Yeah. Okay. There you go.
There it is. Perfect.
Brilliant. Brilliant. So yeah, just before I start, I just wanted to say that as Chris alluded to, I do have some cultural experience. I spent 24 years living in the Middle East with my wife, and my children were born there. And I've been back in the UK 6 years now, working in the same company, the Austin company that you can see there. That has helped, I think, in preparing these slides for you this afternoon. So what I really wanted to do is sort of paint a picture of what engineering is like in the UK. And then that will hopefully help you in your search for employment. So basically in the UK, we have these different disciplines. So I'll just run through them very, very quickly. There might be some differences in Hong Kong. So I wanted to sort of paint that picture, as I said, of what the differences are. So civil engineering in the UK really refers to roads and bridges. So that's predominantly civil engineering. Marine engineering would be more to do with coastal, either harbors or rivers. And so there's a need for marine engineers, which is a slight speciality, I would say. Structural engineers are more general, and they normally are involved in building, so the structure, the frame of the building. I know you have massive structures in Hong Kong, so in the UK we don't have so tall buildings, but there is a real need for structural engineers to be involved either in the concrete design or in the steel frame design. Architecture, I'm sure you'll be familiar with. There are some classic examples of some really good architecture in the UK, and architects are really quite leading our industry at the moment. There's a real push to have energy efficient homes. So from an architectural residential point of view, they are in really great need. We may talk about that a little bit later. Mechanical engineers, that's a really broad spectrum, and I'll try to home in on to something, but mechanical can refer to building services or piping. Chemical engineers tend to be related to the process engineering and life science, so they're more involved in developing processes. Electrical engineers, again, is a very broad spectrum of engineering and covers across the whole different spectrum of engineering. Telecommunications and IT, You will have heard a lot about that already today, but that is involved in the engineering disciplines, and so is quite specialized and can be quite different. Aerospace is another field of engineering in the UK, which is mainly to do with aircraft industry. But in the UK, we have big organizations like Rolls-Royce, who produce engines, which is a mixture of aerospace and mechanical. And then also in aerospace, there's a lot of defense organizations and companies in the UK which sell aboard. Automotive is fairly self-explanatory. That's related to the car industry. So always a need for developing new cars, and the trend in the UK is to go to electric cars. So the automotive industry has really been shaken up in the last few years. There's one that is not on that list that I've thought about since that time, and I would call it sustainability and environmental. Hopefully you'll be able to translate that okay. It's mainly to do with looking after our environment and making sure things are sustainable. So in the UK, we have a focus, what we call carbon zero, so that anything we build or construct and operate has a smaller carbon footprint and has a low energy. So what I wanted to then say is that there are some key sectors in the UK. So this might help you when you're trying to think about what particular field of engineering you want to move into, and that how that relates to what you've been involved with in Hong Kong. So we tend to predominantly have a manufacturing and production design engineering. So that's mainly associated with manufacture of products in the UK. So you might find that there are opportunities in factories. So if you've been, for example, if you've been involved in helping to run factories or involved in the manufacturing process in Hong Kong, then there are many opportunities in different areas. You could be a project manager in that particular engineering field, or you could be a supervisor, you could be even production designer. So that's one field that stands on its own. Another one is design consultancy. So this is really related. In the UK, we have what we call pure design. So we have large companies. Some of those might already be in Hong Kong, for example, W.S. Atkins, Bureau Happold, Arup's. So these are big consultancy practices in the UKHK who also work internationally. So that might be a good opportunity. You might have heard of some of those companies before, and they do purely design. We then have a sector in engineering called design and build, where companies design and build what they're requested to do by clients. And you'll hear a little bit more about that later. That's the type of company that I work to. So in that company, there are designers and they also build. So there are various other opportunities in that construction area. Then you get purely installation and construction companies who only construct or only install. So there are multiple companies in the UK, some very large. Again, some of those companies might have been or still working in Hong Kong. So Balfour Beatty is one large organization, and there are many, many others. So again, that whole installation and construction industry is very large. You also get some small and medium-sized businesses in this sector. You get people who are 1 or 2 employees only. And then you get the very, very large companies, and then there's many in between. And there's a lot of development in the UK still going on. There's a lot of road construction and changing our road system all the time. And there is a large amount of construction tends to be in the cities. So for example, London, there's a huge amount of construction that goes on, but other large cities also in the UK. So in the design and build sector, and I'm speaking really on behalf of my company here. So in the design and build sector, as I said, you have designers and you have the construction. So in that sector, you'll have civil designers, architectural design, structural design, mechanical design, public health. I hope you may have heard of that. You may not have that discipline in the Hong Kong, or it might be called something else, but that's mainly to do with drainage and water. Project management, I'm sure you've heard of that. So in design and build sector, there's a real need for project managers. Then there are construction management, which are people who are based on site. I did meet a gentleman from Hong Kong at the Reading Festival, actually, who was in that sector, and he was looking for a job. Then there's supervision. So any construction projects need supervision, and that could be architectural supervision, mechanical, electrical supervision, any type of supervision. And then we have what we call inspectors, which are going around job sites inspecting in terms of quality, different aspects of engineering to ensure that they are done in a quality way. I don't know, Chris, if I want to pause there, if there's any questions related to that.
I think our only questions so far are relating to the gender pay gap. What should we do if they thought there was a pay gap? So that's probably someone reflecting on Sarah's presentation we just heard. So no, I think you're good to go.
Okay. So just back to answer that from an engineering perspective, there really isn't much of a pay gap between male and female within the engineering sector. What I did want to say is for many years in the UK, engineering has not been the desired profession. And that's probably a lack of education in schools. And so at the moment, there are huge opportunities for employment in the engineering sectors in the UK. And we are desperate for engineers due to Brexit and us leaving the European Union. And that has created a massive gap in the engineering industry. And so there are so many job opportunities. So really, we call it at the moment a candidates market. So you can often dictate what you want within reason because companies are desperate for employees. And I can talk about that later. What I wanted to do now is just talk about the different ways you can get a job in the UK in the engineering sector. So obviously stands without comment really is to prepare your CV. And that's really what I wanted to say here is it's not just about qualifications, but employers are really interested in your actual experience, what you actually did as part of your job role. So I can give some advice later about that if anyone is interested. So what I've put down is permanent positions. So there are two ways you can get a permanent job in the engineering field. You can go direct. So you could join LinkedIn. When you're on LinkedIn, you could search for companies in your field that you've been working in, and you can contact them direct by sending them a message. The other way is to register with engineering job sites, and a few of those are on the bottom of the page. Or you can look for advertised job in your field. So if you go onto some of these engineering job sites, you will find that there are advertised jobs in that particular field. If that matches your particular field, what you normally do is apply online, and you would attach a CV. Sometimes they want attached a letter as well, or some basic details about yourself. So you can do that easily yourselves. So that is one method of getting that job. Another method is to go through recruitment agencies. An agency in the UK, I think, works very differently than Hong Kong. And here you register with an agency. So you contact the agency. And again, I've put a few agencies at the bottom of the page. And you send them your CV and you say, I'm looking for a job in the UK in this particular field. Those recruitment agencies will then look at who have they got on their particular register, who is looking for a job. So for example, my company, we're looking for a number of engineers, and I'll share that list at the end. So we go to agencies and we say, find us an electrical engineer or find us a mechanical engineer. And then they send us the CVs, and then we say to them, yes, I'd like to interview that person. Normally, the first interview is done on MS Teams. And then if the company is interested, they will ask for either a second interview on MS Teams or invite you face-to-face if you happen to be in the UK. What I want to stress here is that the employers, like myself, pay the agency fees. You pay nothing. And I think that varies throughout the world, but just so you know very clearly, you pay nothing to register with an agency. All you need to be clear is what job you are looking for. So I have some websites there, engineeringjobs.co.uk. Indeed is a big recruiter. Hayes also is another big recruiter for engineering jobs, and Precision and Human Capital Solutions. So hopefully that paints a picture about the direct route. So you've got two options. You can do it yourself, or you could register with an agency. The benefit of registering with an agency is they know who's looking for a job. So it will tend to be quicker. In fact, I have already interviewed 2 people from Hong Kong in the last 2 months. One of them we did want, but by the time we had gone back, which was probably only a week, he had found another job. So it's quite a quick turnaround. So I hope that gives you some positive thoughts. The second way you can get an engineering job in the UK is to go contract based. Now, what I mean by contract based is that you offer yourself as contract. So it's not a permanent job, but you could work with that company for 3 months, normally as minimum, but it could be 6 or it could be longer. So you're not actually directly employed by the company you're working with. You're employed by the agency. So again, you can apply on LinkedIn as before. You can register with an agency that deals with contract positions. So they will advertise that we deal with temporary or contract positions. You can again discuss with them the type of job that you want. And as I said, normally the contracts are about 3 months. So you're brought in for a particular job. And I think Ringo was sharing that he was brought in for a year on that basis earlier in the seminar. And that's typical. You can be longer than 3 months, sometimes 6. Previously, we had someone who worked for us for 5 years on contract. And some employers like to do that so that they can discover the quality of the person. At the end of that contract, you even might be offered a permanent job. So sometimes that is an option. Obviously, if you don't have a job, then you wouldn't be paid. So you have to be in a contract. So again, I wanted to stress, you pay nothing, but the employer pays the agent and the agent pays you. So normally you agree an hourly rate, and that the agent will pay you the hourly rate. Again, I've put down some websites down there: Blueprint, Recruit, Rise Technical, and Just Engineers. And you can see the word temporary there, which is another word we use for contract-based people. So again, I'll pause there. I can see that there's some questions in the chat. So Chris, do you want to lead on those?
Thank you very much. Yeah, really, really helpful, Carl. So someone asked a question around what to do if their English is poor. Will they be able to get a job in the world of engineering?
Yeah, I think so, because actually the world of engineering often attracts people who are not good at writing. and so there's an emphasis on technical ability. So if you're an engineer who has those technical skills and can perform and do a job, then as you get into a job, there would be appreciation that you would learn English to a greater level and become more proficient. And I think Sarah said that a little bit earlier, that you can develop your English as you get into the job. But initially they're looking, can you do the design? Do you have the skills and experience to do the design?
So related to that, Carl, is the question around, for the various professional disciplines you mentioned, do UK companies recognise Hong Kong professional qualifications like HKIA versus RIBA?
Yeah, so yeah, that they can do, but what I wanted to stress, and I haven't got to it yet, but I will stress a little bit later on the next slide, is qualifications are not necessarily the important thing. If you come to the UK and are wanting to get a job, they're looking at your experience. I myself do this all the time. I'm looking at the experience, because the qualification is almost the starting point to say you have the ability to learn. And so when you come to the UK, we're looking at the experience that you have. Can you do the job that we want you to do? Now, if you want to be later registered and go on further in the industry in the UK, to get to the more senior or higher level positions, then you will have to work to be registered in the UK. But there are different routes for registration in the UK. If your qualification is recognised, then the particular institute like RIBA will recognise your qualification and give you a status. If they don't, there is the mature route, which in mature route means that you've been in the industry a long time, you have the experience, but you don't necessarily have the qualification. So then you can work towards either taking some exams in the UK or writing a report about your job that you've done, of this job or that job, and then you submit that to a committee who review, and then we'll give you an interview, and then we'll accept you into that institute. So if you want to be at a senior level in the UK, you will have to go through either of those processes. Hopefully that's clear.
Brilliant. And just another question from my phone. Is a UK professional qualification like the CEng helpful?
Yes, yes, it is. It is indeed. The CEng is the recognise that you are a chartered engineer, and then that is a senior level status position. So CEng is a recognised qualification, yes.
Great, thanks, Carl.
So if I just move on basically to say what happened with me. So I say I worked for 24 years in the Middle East. I decided I wanted to return to the UK because mainly my children had moved back to the UK by then. So I registered with 3 recruitment agencies. I attended 3 online interviews, which were done by Skype, which is quite an antiquated system, but and the Skype line was very poor. And I remember the Skype cutting out many times. It was really quite difficult. But by the end of those 3 online interviews, I was offered a job in the UK. Now, I want you to think about, I've been outside the UK for 24 years. So I had lost touch with the codes, the regulations, what was the trend in the UK. But my company could see that I could do the job and had been doing designs, and so offered me a job. And so I would just want to again re-emphasize that experience counted a lot for me. And I still believe, because I now am involved in recruiting people, that I look for experience. Okay, I want to see what their qualification was, but normally that's at the start of their career. And so qualifications are not everything. So that's something that's maybe different for in Hong Kong. And so here we're looking for experience. So maybe you can, you know, there was one, I forget who said it now, Howard or Ringo was saying, you know, the ability to learn. I myself, and I've got grey hair now, but my motto is you continue to learn all your life. So if you have that attitude for continue to learn, then you can come to the UK, learn the UK regulations, and within a short space of time, you will have that knowledge. And so you can either move on to another job if you don't like that. But I think the key is to get into your first job into the UK would be where you want to head for. And then really, just to finish, the company that I work for are either going for permanent positions or contract-based positions. And the people that we are looking for are senior qualified architects, chief electrical engineers, senior electrical and mechanical engineers, project managers, and construction managers. And the details of my company are down there. We have posted in LinkedIn that we would like people from Hong Kong or even Ukraine. And so that we're still on the hunt for architects and engineers. So if any of you are on the line, then please contact us and use my name as a reference, and we'll be in touch. And that's really
Brilliant,
it,
Carl.
Chris.
That's amazing. It'd be amazing if we found you your staff even on this call. Wouldn't that be fantastic? So
yeah, that would be lovely to have anyone join. It would be really great. Yeah.
Excellent. And it's nice to hear companies are actively looking for Hong Kongers. We heard that a bit from Sarah, with the diversity at the leadership level is a really positive trait. And in fact, if your senior management is all white men, that does not play well currently in UK culture. So that if you're entering the market as a woman or a person from a different culture, that could actually be an advantage right now in some of those employment situations.
Yeah.
We have a question from Soyuk San. I'm a barista and a croupier. Maybe my English is limited. I sent my many CVs or emails to UK companies, but I did not get a response, namely finding someone better than you. To be honest, I can only understand 10% of the content that's used. So can I ask you again here? Of course, I'll be preparing to strengthen my English now, but if I continue, may I turn to make the warehouse job? I think he's asking questions around this lack of English issue. So we heard from Sarah and from others, I think from Ring, the idea of taking a more junior role and kind of working your way up. Does that work in British companies, that you can work your way up, or do you kind of hit a ceiling because of your English or because of your background?
No, I think it does work in the UK companies. We have many, I mean, the whole structure of engineering and outside of engineering is you come in as a junior, and then you come up to intermediate, and then senior, and you know, so there is different levels, and I think it's really important. It depends on the job, but I would say you might have to lower your expectations to start with to come into the UK, but very quickly, you will accelerate and have opportunities which will lead to new jobs. I mean, I work with refugees from other different nationalities, and I've seen them come in, and when they're in an English environment where they're dealing with it every day, they learn so quickly.
Yeah.
You know, that, and I say at the beginning, I was saying about, you know, if you know how to do what the job that they're advertising, then that is key, and English will follow. Yeah,
that's really helpful. You probably found it when you lived overseas. I did when I used to live in Albania. Just getting out and speaking the language is the best way to learn. It's how our children are learning actually most efficiently. They learn probably more from the playground than they do from the classroom. It's just that practice. So encouraging people, I like that, Carl, it's really helpful. Just get a job, whatever level it is, and your English will flow, and then you'll find your little niche. That's really helpful.
And I think employers would probably be open to allowing time for people to study English as well. You know, I think there is that, as you said earlier in the conversation, you know, there is a positive attitude from people from Hong Kong, and I think hopefully employers will have that same attitude all the way through and give opportunities for people to learn English. Yeah.
Great, excellent. Shirley Quay asks, is there any license or certificate that if I get, I will definitely be hired immediately? I think the short answer is no, because the job application works a little bit more in a nuanced way. You might have the right qualification, but you might be the wrong fit for the company. But I guess if we're thinking about this space in particular, Carl, are there some qualifications that are more valuable than others if someone was thinking about going back to college to get some more training?
I would say as long as you've got a qualification in your profession that you're working with, let's say you're an electrical engineer, and you have a qualification in electrical engineering, and you've done your job and you have the experience, you don't need to get another qualification.
Yeah.
You know, as an example, because electrical engineering is the same around the world. What there will be is there'll be a transition of learning how the UK codes work. So all that will be, but I believe Hong Kong even does adopt some UK codes. So that might be easier depending on the exact field. But if you've got a qualification in that industry, then it's no problem. It will be down to experience.
Yeah, that's helpful. We had a question here again about qualifications. My English is good, but my problem is I have not a good qualification in the IT industry. My question is, what are the obstacles to face the newcomers if they're not in the UK? I think a couple of things there. So listening back to what we heard from Sarah and from Howard, there are some online courses that you could do if that really is your problem, to get up to speed, and some of them are free, some of them are very cheap, and even if you've got a basic qualification, Howard used, I think it was, or no, maybe it was Sarah used the phrase "get a foot in the door." So a basic qualification gets you in the room, and then maybe you can progress. And some companies, if they see your skills, will invest in your training as well. That might be something they actually want to see you developing.
That's true, and there's an awful lot online, and you know, all the UK codes are online. So you know, if you did want to spend a bit of time looking at the UK centric, what is happening in the UK and what the standards are in different engineering fields or IT, then you will find a lot online. It might take a little bit of searching, but you will find, because a lot of them are out there, and that employers might think, oh right, well, he or she has taken an interest in advance. And
Yes.
that, you know, to me, when I'm recruiting now, top of the list is attitude. Second is character. Then comes experience and qualifications.
Oh,
So you're
that's
looking for the right person for the job, not necessarily just a person who can do the job. You know,
yeah.
I think Sarah said, own the outcome. And that in the engineering industry, you have to own the outcome. So people know that you're attentive and you have a desire to do a good job. And that is really what, you know, that comes as attitude and character.
That's right. And I think from my experience with people from Hong Kong, they do come across very well in interview, because the culture has a lot of respect and politeness, and those are incredibly powerful traits in the job market. So I think you can be very proud of your Hong Kong heritage as you enter that space. Daniel Cheng asks, so an employer in the UK is looking for your experience, but how can you gather experience from the beginning? Do I need to study for another 3 to 4 years to get a placement experience? I know from different sectors, Carl, that there are ways that you can show the experience you've got. You might have some experience, you might be just starting out in your life, but there are things that you can package, things that you do in your hobbies or your you know, your summers, that you can present as experience. But if it really is a barrier, Daniel, that you're struggling to find work, I would suggest you can also offer to come in as an intern or as an apprentice. And that could be something that employers are willing to do, particularly when they know that you've arrived here from the UK relatively recently. I'm seeing it happen a lot with Ukrainians, for example.
And I always encourage refugees, if they haven't got that experience, to do even voluntary work, or like you say, intern work. Just then you get your foot in the door, as you used the expression earlier. And then if employers see who you are and that your attitude and character is good, they might likely say, well, this person has potential. You know, this person is, you know, we can foresee what that person could do and how they could move on in the company. So I would, you know,
voluntary work is good. There are interesting different company policies around interns, because in some spheres there's been abusive practice of interns where we should be paying people, we're not. So that you might find that a challenge, but in other sectors not. I know in the charitable world, you know, interns are amazing, and volunteers are really powerful in helping us get things done. Wing Su has a question. How about a communication engineer? Are there good opportunities in the UK for that space?
Telecommunications and IT, that's a good environment. You probably need to go to particular job websites that are looking for telecommunications IT professionals. So try some of the ones I listed on the presentation, but also Google ones particular to do with telecoms and IT. But again, it's an industry that it needs people all the time. And perhaps it might be a little bit harder because there tends to be a lot of people who have gone into business management and IT over the years. But it's worth trying. Definitely.
Kenny Chang says, I'm Kenny and I'm currently looking for an IT support job, but most of the job descriptions ask for excellent communication skills. I used to work with English speaking people when I was in Hong Kong in my past 17 years ago, but I'm not sure if that's the same communication skills that I've already got. Would the employer just filter my CV, or would that be a big game stopper for me? How can I assess that by myself?
I would, to assess it yourself, I would think try to find someone locally who you can speak to, who knows English and could then assess your level. But I would never stop from sending my CV I remember years ago I sent 100 CVs and I got 3 replies, you know. So, but I would never stop sending a CV. It's up to the employer to make that judgment, not you yourself. So don't let that be a barrier to stop you sending your CV. But I also think it would be useful for that person to actually meet someone who knows English well and to assess their level. And then if their level is not good enough, just push on and try to gain it a bit more.
Really helpful. And I wonder, Daniel, when they're asking for excellent communication skills, this might be my prejudice about the IT industry, partly because I love watching a TV show called The IT Crowd, which is all about IT support professionals. That they might just be wondering about attitude again. So it's not how good your English is, it's how willing you are to engage with people. Because some in the sector just like to be left alone and get on and do their work, rather than someone who's open to communication. So I don't think they're only asking about your spoken English. I think they're asking about your attitude. Do you relate well to people? Are you friendly? Are you engaging? And if that's true of you, then I think you can say you do have excellent communication skills, but you're working on your English. I think that's totally acceptable.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
Ava Chung asks, is a UK driving license for construction work needed, particularly if you are a quantity surveyor?
Quantity surveyor, yes. I think quantity surveyor, it would be very helpful if you had a UK driving license. I'm not sure, Chris, you might know better than me, but if you had a Hong Kong driving license, whether that can get transferred over, I'm not sure.
Yeah, from my understanding, many of our Hong Kong friends didn't drive cars in Hong Kong because the infrastructure was so good, and it's so expensive to have a car in Hong Kong. But I'm not sure. I think there is a process by which you can transfer, or you're allowed to use your Hong Kong license for a limited amount of time. I know that's true, for example, when people go to America. I think we're allowed a year or so, aren't we? So there might be some leeway, but if you don't drive at all, is it worth learning, do you think?
Yeah, I think in the UK, if you needed a driving license in the UK, it's taking an awful long time to get a test book, and it's expensive. I have a quantity surveyor at work who doesn't go to job sites, so you know, it's not essential that you have to have a driving license, because there are other colleagues that will be going to that site, for example. So again, I wouldn't use that as something that would stop you applying for the job.
Particularly in London as well, where you can get around really well with public transport, and a lot of the site visits, parking is a complete nightmare. So not using a car would probably be a strength. But yeah,
that's right. I think you're right, Chris. To working in some of the big cities, Manchester, London, you don't need a car.
Brilliant, Carl. Thank you so much. You've been a
pleasure.
wonderful expert for us. Thanks for bringing all your wisdom and experience to us. Although Ava did say that she can't actually drive at the moment, and she's finding it difficult to find construction work. And someone said, yes, you can use a Hong Kong driving license in the UK for a year, though converting a Hong Kong license to a UK one is free and can be done by mail. Brilliant. Thank you, anonymous attendee. That was very kind of you.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Okay, thanks.
Great. Thank you so much, Carl.
Thank you.
We are expecting a new visitor to join us. We have one more field of interest to look at, and that is education. But while we're waiting, I wonder if you could just express your appreciation to Carol and Jenny, who've been working tirelessly translating for us. And if you know anything about translation, you'll know that simultaneous translation is the most difficult that is possible to do, because we didn't pause, everyone was speaking at top speed, and yet our translators still managed to keep up. So they're probably embarrassed translating this bit, but I'm very grateful. I think translation is a superpower, and thank you so much for serving us today. It's really, really kind of you. We appreciate it. Okay, we are not quite ready to have Andy with us, but maybe there's some more questions that you might have in general about what you've heard. We are also looking for ideas about how else we can serve you. UKHK has been running plenty of events, the friendship festivals. We've got our special event on tomorrow for parents helping their children get into life here and study here in the UK. You can actually order individual copies. You might be able to see that in the chat. You can order an individual copy of the welcome book, so that's available. But yeah, if there are things you think we should be doing to better help Hong Kongers, let us know. The whole reason that UKHK exists is to serve you, and so just let us know how we can be helpful to you. Now, in a minute, Andy is going to join us, and Andy's got a really powerful role as the kind of lead thinker and expert on education within the Church of England Schools Network. I don't know if you know this, but it's around, I think it's a third of all primary school children go to a school run by the Church of England. Maybe your children are in them. You don't have to be a person of faith in order for your child to go to a Church of England school. You just need to agree with the ethos of the school, which is normally about hospitality, kindness, compassion, all the things that many of us, whether we share Christian faith or not, would adhere to. So we're looking forward to Andy joining us. He is in Toronto in Canada, and so this is crazy early in the morning. I just came back from Vancouver, where I met lots of people from Hong Kong, which was delightful. Here he is, Andy's here. And Andy, good to see you. I know isn't it early in the morning for you?
Hey, Chris, good to see you. No, I'm back in London today. So yeah. Came back last night. Yeah. Great to see you.
Great. I got back from Vancouver on Saturday, and I still fall asleep at odd times in the day. And it's
really
Tuesday. So yeah, you must be a young man compared to me, because
I'm feeling okay. Maybe later we'll find out a problem, but at the moment I'm okay. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, Andy, we're really looking forward to hearing from you. Why don't you share a little bit about your context and what you do, just to give people a frame. I mentioned a little bit about Church of England schools, but feel free to say some more. If I spot questions in the chat, I'll just politely intervene so that we don't move on to another topic without giving people a chance to ask something of you. But Andy, great to have you here. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, no, it is fantastic to be with you all. My name's Andy Wolf. I'm the Executive Director of Education for the Church of England. And what that means is that I help to oversee nationally all the Church of England schools in the country. Now, the Church of England runs nearly 5,000 schools in England, which is a crazily big number. It's actually about 20% of all schools. And it's been doing that since the early 19th century. So it actually started doing that in 1811, when it began opening schools for people who couldn't afford to go to school. So in England at that time, you could go to school, but only if you could pay for it. Whereas the Church of England felt that's not okay. We want everybody to be able to access this. And so it began opening schools at that time. So nearly 211 years ago, that began happening. And now we're the biggest provider of education in the country, in every city, lots of countryside places, rural places, coastal places, big cities, etc. And I help to oversee that. My role is to oversee that. And, it's great to be on this webinar to talk about why get involved in education. Funnily enough, I've just been in my national education team day. And we are thrilled actually to appoint Anna to our team, who recently arrived from Hong Kong. And she said, Andy, I'm so happy to see you. I had an amazing meeting on Saturday, and you've got to read this book. So I don't know if colleagues, it's the same book. Fantastic. So I don't know if colleagues can see that, but look, we got the same book. And she was really, she's just started in our team. She's working actually overseeing all of our financial stuff across our office, and it's been great. So we've been and so I've just been reading through this fantastic book. So you know, on behalf of all the education system, you know,
Hey,
super
great.
welcome, and we're super integrated.
Excellent. Let me give a shout out. Mina is on the call, and these little beautiful drawn cartoon characters. Mina did that, and that's not even on her job description. My wife and I wrote the text of it, and then we had a fantastic designer do the rest of this. So I presented this to the Minister for Refugees this morning, and he was very impressed. So thank you. That's great bit of co-branding. I love that.
Yeah,
we're not even in the same building, and you're promoting our book, which is fabulous. And Andy, interesting about the kind of history of education in the UK. I don't think a lot of people realise there wouldn't be a public education system if it hadn't been for the church. The church stepped up and offered the schools for children that would otherwise have remained illiterate, and that was the first use of the Sunday school. Sunday schools weren't for children who go to church; they were for children who couldn't read or write, and that's a wonderful heritage. But help us a little bit with education in the UK in general. I mean, some people have been saying earlier that their qualifications aren't recognised here. They might be open for a new sphere of work. What are the opportunities in education for some of the folks on the call today?
Yeah, so I mean, there's lots of different ways into teaching as a profession. There are lots of universities that provide that kind of training program. Until about 10 years ago, you could really only do it through a university. But these days, you can also do it through directly through schools. So there's a whole bunch of schools that you can do your training with. And you can develop as a teacher by being based in that school. And the idea of that is, rather than being in a university and sort of learning in an academic way and then coming to the school, you actually learn on the job. So you're actually, and you're in a community. So
Yes.
Although I'm sure you know, university would be a great option in lots of ways. Actually, the richness of being in a school community could be a really attractive option for doing that. And depending on what subjects you're interested in teaching, in the UK there are lots of there's lots of support financially for particular subjects. So for example, if you were interested in teaching in a high school context, a secondary school context, so for 11 to 18-year-olds, there are certain curriculum subjects where the government will pay for the training, and also they'll pay you an additional kind of bonus to encourage you to do it. So like in science or maths or physics or computing. And those are areas where, you know, there just aren't enough teachers in the UK. So that it's actually a really, in terms of just the basics of the job market, it's a really, you know, the UK government is really keen to find ways of employing more teachers and more school leaders and so on. So there'll be lots of opportunities for that.
So if someone's coming with an engineering background or a business background and saying, you know what, this is a new adventure in the UK, I'm willing to try something new, they could apply to one of these programs. Is one of them called Teach First? Is that an appropriate one?
So Teach First a little bit different. So Teach First is really designed for people who are recent graduates, who are thinking of, and the commitment in Teach First is to teach for 2 years in the first instance, and you receive all the training while you do that. Many of Teach First candidates then go on to be teachers for their whole career, in fact head teachers as well, but that's kind of focused on people who've generally relatively recently graduated. But there are lots of other routes into teaching, and as I say, you know, if you were to contact your local university, the other acronym that will be helpful for you when you're looking at it is we would say SCITT, which is SCITT. So ITT is initial teacher training, and the SC of it stands for school. So it really means school-based. So a SCITT is where you're learning to be a teacher, but based in a school. So if you just Google, like if you're in Nottingham where I live and you just Googled Nottingham skits, SCITT, you'll find details of who you could contact about that.
Great. That's really inspiring, isn't it? That you don't have to go and do a 3-year degree to become a teacher.
No, absolutely not.
Almost immediately and be trained on the job. That would be great. I guess some people might be nervous about their English proficiency. Do you have any wisdom there?
Yeah, most of the training providers will have a clear position on the standard of English that they would expect, just like a university course would in terms of like an IELTS score or something like that. But there'll be a real I would expect there'd be a real welcoming posture towards those arriving from Hong Kong, and clearly, to be an effective teacher in the UK, you would have to have a pretty good level of English, but I would think by very nature of being here and immersing yourselves in actually speaking English, then that's going to be moving forward. I suppose one additional thing that I'd say is that teaching requires a good standard of written English as well, which is obviously slightly different from spoken English. And so, I think that would be something that teacher training providers would really encourage.
Yeah. I think with the increased number of people from Hong Kong in the UK, and particularly in some areas like Sale in Manchester or Reading we were hearing about earlier, this high concentration of Hong Kong new arrivals, I think will make schools very open to employing people from Hong Kong to be able to help those children. But if you're, let's say you're a mum or a dad, and you've taken time out of your career in order to help raise your children. I've met quite a few parents who enter the workforce by becoming teaching assistants, because that seems to work quite well with the working day. That you'll actually go into school when your children go into school, you'll be assisting someone at school, and then when school finishes, you can take your children home. So that it kind of fits well. Can you talk about what a TA does, and why someone might consider that as maybe a first step into teaching?
Yeah, of course. So in a usual classroom in England, there would be a teacher, of course. There might be about 30 children. And then often there would be a teaching assistant who is a kind of support colleague for the main teacher. Sometimes that teaching assistant will be there to support particular students. So, for example, a student who for whom English was not their first language, there might be a teaching assistant to support with that, or a people who had special educational needs that needed some extra support in the classroom. Somebody might be there for that reason. But usually there'll be a teaching assistant. You might hear it called TA. So when you hear that abbreviation, a TA, it's a teaching assistant. And then in some secondary schools, some high schools, there would be additional roles to support pupils' well-being and pastoral growth. And often those roles will be what we would call term time only, which means that you don't work during the school days students. Now, in terms of the very basic things like how much they're paid, but it's not so, and you might expect that because the teacher is leading the classroom, but
Andy, we might be losing you a bit. I don't think it's my Wi-Fi connection, but you might have frozen, or I might have frozen, and you might be fine. Does someone want to come on and tell us whether it's me or Andy? That would be great. Okay. Andy's frozen. Thank you, Mina. It's not me. Let's just have a little pause from Andy. Maybe someone can message him.
It's a really great career. And actually, we have lots and lots and lots of teachers in our schools who began Is that better now? I can totally see and hear you fine.
Yes, it's better. You're back.
Okay, great. So what I was saying is that a lot of our teachers in our schools have begun their career as teaching assistants. So it's a way to try out and explore whether working in a school could be a good thing.
Yeah.
And
We're losing you again, Andy.
particularly in
So sorry.
areas where there are lots of arrivals from.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Andy, we lost you. That was all golden stuff. I think what Andy was saying was that becoming a teaching assistant can be a great way to start your teaching career. If you have got school-aged children, it can fit really well. And as we were hearing in some of the other seminars, just being in the workplace will help you develop confidence in your English. So that could be a really powerful way in. The other things you could do in education are around some of the administration roles. And again, because schools are such a kind of local community hub, being involved in administration in a local school can be another way to practice your English, be alongside children and really get to know people. Andy, you're back. How's it going?
Yeah, good. I'm actually in a school at the moment, so I've just moved to a different place in the school where I think
those children on the internet, what's going on?
Perhaps the reception is better. So yeah, that's a great way into teaching as a teaching assistant. Yeah.
Amazing. I was just mentioning administration as well. That's an often, or IT support within a school environment is another space. And from my experience, I mean, we've got 6 children. You know, 3 of them have nearly finished their educational journey, and 3 are right in the middle of it. But being involved in a school has lots of benefits, and not just about financial, but the fact that you feel like you're making a difference. And also the community it brings. Do you want to share a little bit about that, Andy?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there are lots of other roles inside a school context, like some of the ones that you've mentioned. And you'll generally find that a school community is a really happy place to work. It's a really rewarding place to work. It's well regarded. And you can feel that you're really contributing something to the community and to wider society and the families that you're serving. So it's a really good opportunity to be part of that. And also because a school community is full of children and families, you quickly will make lots and lots of connections with different parts of a community that maybe if you're working in a normal office environment, maybe you maybe don't have the same kind of experience in that sense. So I mean, I think it's important to say that in schools there are children. So I think it's important that you like being with children if you want to work in education. I say that kind of as a joke, but some people may think that they'd like that job, but actually the whole point of being with young people. So I think that's an important thing to say. But yeah, and you'll find.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I think it's your school Wi-Fi. If there's a communications engineer on the call, that could be another vocation for you to upgrade our school Wi-Fi systems around the country, because they are not as good as they ought to be in some places. Well, friends, there is a chance for you to ask some last questions as we go. Someone said, Andy and Krish, I've heard some of the DBS checking or other checking may be required for teaching. Is this the case? For those who have moved to the UK recently from Hong Kong, we may not have a valid record, and the Hong Kong regulator is no longer issuing similar background checks to Hong Kongers. Could you please share any view about what we can do to get eligible in teaching on that aspect? That's a really good point. I mean, Andy was mentioning that schools are full of children, and obviously children need support and protection, and that's why we have this DBS check. And the DBS check is basically a criminal records check for you to make sure that you're an appropriate person to care for children, and that's given to all people. It's not just for people that have moved to the UK. I wonder if anyone on the call, or Andy, you know anything about the DBS checks for people that are coming from overseas? Is that something we're aware of?
Yeah, I
Yeah, we're struggling, Andy.
clearly it's an important thing. You have to have it.
Yeah.
It's not an optional thing.
That's right. Let's do what we can to find out about that. And if we are able to find out for you, that would be quite a key issue, really. I know that there was a really intensive program to encourage more Hong Kong people to become nurses over here. And you also need a DBS check to be a nurse. And that didn't seem to be a barrier for lots of Hong Kongers coming to serve in that way. Someone said, is a Bachelor of Education from another country applicable in UK schools? Do we know if we recognise teaching qualifications from other places? That's a question someone's asked us. Do we know that, Andy? Yeah, Chloe Chow asked a similar question actually about the no criminal conviction certificate. We call it the DBS, but it's the same idea. Again, I'm confident there is a workaround for that. That means that you can still meet all your safeguarding criteria, even if we can't get hold of your records in Hong Kong. But let's, if we find out about that, we'll email you round if we have any more information. It's something we can ask the government about. Great. Well, Andy, I want to say thank you so much for joining us. Sorry, we had a bit of a problem with the Wi-Fi at the end there, but thanks for making time, particularly after you just got back from Toronto. And just as we come towards an end, can I say a huge thank you again to our incredible translators, Carol and Jenny. You are really, really amazing, and we're thankful that you made this session accessible. I want to say thank you to all of our speakers. I want to say thank you for Minako in the background. She doesn't like drawing attention to herself, but she's done a fantastic job helping us with some of the technical things and also the advertising for this event. That was designed by her. Sam has been, again, beavering away in the background. He was the one that got together our speaking lineup, and he's been absolutely fantastic on the UKHK team. And thank you to you. Thanks for bringing questions today. If you would like to look at some of the previous recordings and also this recording, you can find that on the website ukhk.org/skills to work. And don't forget to visit the UKHK website for finding out more about getting hold of this book or coming to our amazing event tomorrow afternoon, 4 till 6. Every child welcome. We're looking forward to that and the upcoming festivals. So may I wish you a fantastic rest of your day. I hope you felt welcome. That is our key desire. That and we know that helping you get into the workplace is a way that you feel welcome and integrated. That's why we exist. And so I hope today's been useful to you. We'd love to hear from you if you have any questions, but thanks so much and may God bless you. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks.